Welcome back to MedTech Trailblazers for part 2 of our conversation with Ginger Graham. Ginger grew up on a farm in rural Arkansas. She was a rodeo queen. She rode horses, rode bulls, and even roped cattle. She and her husband still take the horses and go camping with them in beautiful places across this country. At first, Ginger wanted to be a vet, but discovered it wasn't for her. With the encouragement of a mentor, she went to Harvard Business School and then started her healthcare career at Eli Lilly. She was appointed to become president of Advanced Cardiovascular Systems, or ACS, which Lilly owned at the time. She then became part of the team that spun out ACS and other Lilly device companies into Guidant Corporation. She led the Guidant vascular intervention business through its launch of the world's leading cardiovascular stent platform. She then became group chairman in the office of the president at Guidant Corporation. After leaving Guidant, she became the highly celebrated CEO of Amylin Pharmaceuticals. Ginger embraced every new opportunity, thriving on operating outside of her comfort zone and taking on new challenges, which led to her growth and remarkable success. Let's continue with part 2 of our interview with Ginger Graham, where we'll focus on her medical device career and talk about how she helped turn around ACS with a bottoms-up approach. If you recall, she waited, listened, and learned for 3 months before she started taking steps to change the company. You've done the learning. You've stated bluntly and factually what the concerns are. What were some of those next steps you took? What were some of the pivotal moments there?
Well, we did a few things that were rather dramatic from an organizational and performance standpoint. One thing is we literally gathered together every part of the value chain that touched product innovation and literally locked them in a room with paper around a giant ballroom's walls. And we drew the map of how product development should happen in the future to do it quickly and correctly, because ACS had a number of experiences of products getting partway through development and then a technology that had been added to it failed and it never made it to market. Or they would get something all the way through and it would get to the customer and it did not perform at standards that the customer would accept. And even unfortunately, some things that had gotten through the process and the regulator decided needed pulled off the market. And these are very unacceptable outcomes in any situation. And so clearly the machine was broken and we had to fix it. And that was the hardest thing, I believe, was to shut down the entire product development process in an industry that rapidly iterates. And ACS had been launching somewhere between 15 and 25 products a year. And we called timeout and said, this isn't working. And therefore, we're going to remake how it's going to work and we're going to start over, which means we lost more than a year in the marketplace, which seemed like the potential death of the company. Although the reality was it was already failing and we had to stop and fix it.
Yeah, it sounds like it was going to die if you didn't do this. And so instead of band-aiding it along the way, I think it was a brave move to call it, as you said, a timeout, reset, and then go. And again, I would say the rest is history.
It was not wildly popular.
Yeah.
There were a couple of times I thought I might lose my job, but I really believed strongly that it was right and that it was the only way to invent the machine that could succeed in a more competitive, with new entrants, changing market. I didn't believe we could just patch it or keep doing and power our way through it because we had too many data points of failure. And it's also very demotivational. One of the greatest things about going to ACS, it was an organization that knew what it meant to be great. They knew what it meant to be number one. They knew what it meant to launch things that really mattered to patients and to physicians. And so that winning culture, that desire to be excellent was everywhere in the building. It was just defeated. And so it only took reigniting that, calling that back into being and saying, let's go back there. And you have more answers than I do. How? Tell me how. What do you need? What will it take? How will we work differently? And my experience was that time and many others that people want to be part of a great organization. People want to be a winner. People want to be included in community and things that matter. They want to make a difference. And if they feel like they get a chance to say something, to stand up, to voice, to participate, they will. It's just often in big companies, we shut them all down. We ignore them. They're there. I know better because I'm management. But
Yeah.
I feel like if you turn the organization upside down, your success opportunities are dramatically improved.
I think it sounds like you're also describing the next step, your experience at Guidant, and the remarkable culture that I hear about there. So can we talk about your experience there?
Well, of course, I love talking about Guidant. I love Guidant. I still love my family, which is my Guidant family all over the globe. But I do think that it's easy to paint the ending picture and forget the beginning. And the beginning was very hard. Number one, we were all for sale. And of course, anytime companies are being told, we're selling you, you lose talent. People get demotivated or quit working. What difference does it make? There's a lot of fear. Can I pay my rent? Am I going to be okay? And the opportunity to experience very negative outcomes is very high. And I had experience in Elanco when I was there of being downsized, and then we sold off half the company. So I'd been a part of that. And then I had been on Wall Street where we'd done transactions, and I'd worked with Ardent while we sold them, and I saw how it affected the culture there. And so I knew that we could get worse. Instead of at a time when you're being inspected by possible buyers, you want to be at your best.
Yeah.
And to me, it was just a great opportunity to include our organization, all of the ACS family, in making sure that we had a say in our future, that we weren't just left behind. And so we had a process where we were up for sale. We had lots of due diligence by various companies. And in the end, a few leaders from Lilly who were part of the medical device cohort and some of the Lilly executives decided that the best outcome for both companies would be for Guidant to try to take itself public and spin out as a separate entity. And I had the incredibly life-altering good fortune to be part of the core team that took Guidant public. So we had to persuade all of our employees and all these companies. We put together 5 of the medical device companies that Lilly owned and gave ourselves a new name, a new brand, a new look. And I can tell you that not many employees were excited about it, right? They kept their ACS cards or their CPI cards, and they would give their customer their old business card instead of their new one because they weren't yet bought into who Guidant was becoming.
Yep.
But it was an opportunity to create a cardiovascular powerhouse that we were convinced had the talent and the assets and the capabilities to lead the industry. But it didn't happen the day we went public. It took a while to build.
And then, well, can you talk about that? Talk about the building of the culture? Because I have to tell you, I've obviously come in contact with a lot of folks from Guidant throughout my career, and they talk, just as you did, they talk very passionately about Guidant, not about ACS, CPI, and everyone else. So at some point, and maybe it was time, but at some point, that did coalesce into one company culture. You know what?
It did become one company culture. Some of it kicking and screaming, not all of it willingly. We did create a brand and a statement. It's a great time to be alive. We created that statement to try to inspire people to think about, aren't we lucky? There's all this technology. So if we have a health event, there's a new answer. You don't have to be in the hospital for weeks and have your chest cracked open or potentially be compromised for life. So it was a great time in technology. It was a great time because coming together, we could approach hospitals with competitive advantage against Medtronic or Boston Scientific or Johnson & Johnson because we could offer defibrillators and pacemakers and angioplasty and eventually stents. So we had a wide range, and then we had cardiac surgery tools and we had endovascular devices. So we could be a much bigger player in the technology world. And that idea of a brand We took our brand on the road. I did road shows all over the globe, bringing employees together, launching the brand. We provided materials to them. We had to do the same thing with customers. Our ACS customers didn't care at all about Guidant. The CPI pacemaker customer wasn't the least bit interested in Guidant. And so we had to teach and show. And that was very important because the management team at Guidant traveled nonstop. I traveled 250 days a year for the entire time I was at Guidant. So we went out on behalf of the company and the individuals that worked at Guidant and advocated for the organization. And I think that the management team's presence in the marketplace with every customer, with every hospital, advocating for what we were going to do in the industry did have an impact. But more importantly, I think we did work internally. We had 8 principles we established at Guidant. And we started from the very beginning. We brought the entire new management team together and we had work sessions. We split them out in cross-company organizations to try to teach them to work together in this new organization. And we established how we wanted to lead. We wanted to lead in innovation. We wanted to lead in product development. We wanted to lead in compliance and quality. And we set up this framework of results focused and really described what it would look like to be great. And then in each organization, tried to build an organization culturally that was focused on those outcomes and knew how they could make a difference. And I think that intentional effort, Ron Dollins, who was the CEO, led that intentional effort to stake out territory that said, we'll redefine quality and compliance. We will set new standards in clinical research and proof and evidence in medicine. We will be the highest integrity sales forces out there without unquestionable practices. And those principles then became how we built the organization.
So let's talk about, for the next couple of questions, I'd like to talk about you, your style, your characteristics, your management style, and some of the things that you believe. So people who've worked with you in the past speak highly of many admirable traits, but here are a couple. I'm reading them: intelligence, confidence, a powerful communicator, and grit, to name a few. What do you think's made you successful? Is it a combination of all of these things? Is there one element that you believe was more important for your success?
Well, you know, there's so many things that you get given in life. I think one of the reasons that I get credit for success is because I worked with organizations that were winning cultures that were in trouble. And I've always told people, I think you could look brilliant if you just fix 1 or 2 things because they're in trouble. You know, people want clarity. And people want to know that if they work hard and they give of themselves, that it's going to matter. And I do believe that my orientation is individual, that you matter. What you do matters. I believe that about myself. And I learned that growing up, that I get to choose how I show up, and how I show up matters. And so for me, showing up in available and real and who I am. And that has been something that was a challenge. I would say always the only female, always a decade or 2 younger than everyone I worked with or reported to me. People try to frame how you should act, what you should do. Your business card says CEO, therefore I expect you to behave in this way. And for me, it was trying to remain completely me, despite what you want me to be honest when I don't know what I'm doing, to respect your time and energy if you're going to give it to me, to know your name, so that when I see you in the hallway, you're a person to me. You're not just someone working that I need them to go get something done. To have the courtesy to listen. Because if you came to work here and you've been working here 10 years and I just got here, you know a whole bunch of stuff I don't know. And I should know that. I should listen to you. And to be confident that most people want to do the right thing. People are good. People want to be part of something that matters. People care about whether anyone knew they showed up today or not. And those simple principles, I think, really allow people to be honest. They allow them to care and not feel like an idiot, like they got used up today. I think it allows people to try to make the organization better. And imagine, at Guidant, when we started ACS, we had, 1,300 people when I got there, or no, 2,900 people when I got there. And Guidant was over 14,000 at the end. And so how do you permeate that? Well, you trust that everyone else in the organization cares as much as you do and is working hard too, and will take care of the company's ethics and standards when you're not in the room. And they'll mentor their peers, and they'll reach out and, say the name of someone that they need to get to know. And when times are hard, they'll help each other. And it's personal. It's not just business. And I think that orientation allows people to show up as their best selves at work. And on the days when you're not, hopefully they care about you enough to kick you in the butt and ask you to step back up again, because nobody's perfect.
Yep. Sense of purpose, right? That's what I got through that, and a clear communication of a sense of purpose. All right, next one for you.
Think about it, Andrew. We touched millions and millions of lives. My family members, I won't name them all, are wearing Guidant devices inside. I know they're in good hands because the quality, the integrity, the people that work there, the rigorous quality controls and standards that we set. So the fact that people I care about most in life are wearing Guidant inside, I'm proud of that. Thank goodness we were there. I'm glad they got our devices and not another company's, because I know what we put into those devices. And every day we tried to bring patients in and patient families. We told stories, we captured videos, we published vignettes. We used it to teach the organization about the reason for compliance standards and SOPs and quality, not because a regulator sits out there.
Yeah.
Fine, we need those as an industry, but because my mom or dad is going to have one of these in them. That's why we do what we do. And that's very motivational for people, I think.
Up on the wall, where you can probably see right there, is a set of core principles from our time at Ardian. And that is, one of those core principles is quite frankly, remember that our patients or our customers are someone's mother or father, son or daughter. Yeah, what you're doing matters.
It does. It matters.
So here's one. I love this. So this was a quote that we got, that you pushed on your folks until you hit rock hard convictions. So you talked earlier on about Harvard and the the Socratic, could not get that out, and the Socratic method. This sounds like you then employed that as a management tool with your teams, and that's what I loved. You pushed until you hit rock hard convictions. Is that a true reflection?
It's a very interesting characterization. What you need to do in organizations often is really hard. It requires unusual sacrifice, the amount of travel, the hours, and sometimes it's just work. And so when you have difficult times in particular, you have to understand the core issues in the organization. Was it laziness? Was it ignorance? Was it malintent? Was it, incomplete control? There's so many ways. And then there are so many things outside your control. Literally, the world happens, and it happens every day, and it happens without your permission, and with just fierceness sometimes that is disabling in the organization. No matter how hard you've worked, something fails anyway, or you get put down. And so trying to solve problems requires bringing the intensity of the intellect and the heart forward. It requires all of that. It's not a passive activity, especially if you're going to change the rules, do something that's never been done, make a difference in a big way. And often that's where we had to find the answer, was in that place where I had no depth of technical expertise in so many aspects of the business. I couldn't know. I could not solve the problem, but I knew I couldn't, on behalf of the patient and the organization, accept an easy answer, a fast answer, a convenient answer, a cheaper answer. And so sometimes you have to go to the place where someone shows up willing to kind of lay down themselves at the line. And when you get there, when it's really important, you have to get there, then you know that you're going to do that. You're just going to do that, even if it costs more, even if it's harder, even if everyone in the industry says, well, that was stupid. You're just going to do that. And I am proud of the fact that many times I can name names and moments when people of Guidant put themselves in front of the train and said, this is what's right. And I think we all owe them our entire careers, because they're the ones that fixed the real problems, prevented the really big issue, or made us better in the end, the hard way.
Yeah.
And I hope that I helped that happen a lot of times.
Well, that comes through in all the homework we did for this call. So absolutely. So we've got one here, and this is something that Ron Dolan's told us.
Oh dear.
that he had a saying. I believe this is how it goes. That he had a saying: "Don't
Never try to teach a pig to sing.
Waste your time and annoys the pig." And he said, "You really dislike that." Really dislike that. That seems like, that's pretty common sense, but no, why did you dislike that?
Well, there's a big philosophical debate, and I actually went on to do a TED Talk using Ron's expression.
Mm-hmm.
And I found a card one day that said that, and I framed it for him and put it in his office, because Ron used it all the time. And you would have to ask Ron for sure what he meant with it. I have struggled with that saying the entire, whatever it is now, 30 years I've known Ron. Number one, if you say never try to teach a pig to sing, are you saying that people can't be more, that they can't do the impossible, that we're not going to invest to find in humans what they're capable of that they don't even know yet? And I believe strongly that that's what people did for me. They found in me that I had no idea I could run a company. I had no idea I could be successful at Harvard. I never imagined being the CEO of a publicly traded company. I didn't even know anyone who'd ever done that. So people found in me what I didn't know I could do. But I think I learned after working for Ron for a long time that it's actually the reverse, which is people have talent, people have inherent gifts, people bring themselves, if they're accepted, to work fully and can make a difference. And so when someone is not naturally a process person, don't try to make them that, or tell them they're not good or not good enough, or they can't be a contributor because they don't do it that way. Don't try to make people be what they're not. Use what they are. Go find what they are and the best of what they are and use that. And I remember a story that Ron used to tell a lot. There was a gentleman who was very high contributing intellectually at ACS in the technology side. And a lot of our patents on the patent wall of fame had his name on them. And there was an HR person along the way who really felt like this person should be fired because he slept often under his desk during a workday. And Ron used that story a lot to say to people, okay, when I took the HR guy down the wall of fame and showed him how many times this guy's name was on the patent wall, I told him if he wants to sleep all day, I don't care. Let him sleep. And so Ron's orientation was so empowering. He was take the whole human and believe in them and invest in them and let them be what they are amazing at, but don't discredit them for what they're not. And so another one of Ron's sayings was, catch people in the act of doing good and celebrate it. Celebrate what you want to see more of. He said that to me a billion times. So don't go around and say, oh, that wasn't good, or, you need to improve that, or, that talk wasn't so great, or your comment there. Say, oh, that was great. I love that. Thank you for that. Oh, good work. Oh, I wish everyone was doing that. He wanted you to celebrate what people brought that mattered and quit worrying about what they're not. And so I think I learned over time, never try to teach a pig to sing doesn't mean that we can't find the power in everyone and let them learn and experiment and become even more than they knew they could. But it means don't try to make them be something they're not and then diminish all the value they do bring.
What they do. Yeah. That's a great answer. Thank you. And then we sort of jumped in there a little bit to Ron Dolans as clearly an influential mentor to you. But in our discussions the other day, there was another person that I'm not sure you had direct contact with, but Ruth Bader Ginsburg seemed to be influential on your life. Can you describe that a little bit?
Well, RBG is famous in her own right and certainly became a cult icon among young women. But I think beyond her last decades of career success and as a Supreme Court justice and an amazing public speaker, she had a very long and dedicated marriage. She was an incredible judge and student and a teacher. And I admire all those things about her, but I take her personally for another reason. I graduated from high school in 1974. So it seems like a long time ago, but in the history of women and professional careers, it's really very short. And I truly believe if it hadn't been for Ruth Bader Ginsburg and her very early work, even in front of the Supreme Court, before she was a justice, bringing cases forward to eliminate sex discrimination. And it just so happened that much of that culminated in the 70s. So when I got out of high school and then out of college, as a woman, I got to work. I got choice. I was hired out of college by a panel of interviewers, all men, who told me they had to hire a woman or a person of color. And at that interview, they were interested in hiring me. And that would not have happened without RBG. So thankfully, she was there before me and she paved a way so that businesses had to start hiring women. And I got a chance. I really thought I was good enough to be hired. So I didn't think they were compromising, but I wouldn't have got that chance if not for her work at that time. And maybe it would have happened 10 years later, but for me, it made all the difference in the world. And I love still reading things she's written in her speeches, because another thing that she gave us all, I think, besides more opportunity, is perspective. Every time she ever spoke, people would ask her, aren't you still dissatisfied? Isn't it still awful about discrimination and all the barriers? And she would say, look how far we've come. Isn't it great? And yes, there's more work to do. And I think that's a great model, that if we all adopt this idea that it's the best place on the planet for women to work. Thank God I was born in America and I had these opportunities, but there's more work to be done. And I think she's a great role model for that.
Yeah, and I think I enjoyed the conversation we had the other day, expanding upon that. And I think this is a good lead in then to your current project. So Ginger and Baker, can you describe that for us?
Yes, I can. I'm excited about it. Ginger and Baker is a food hub and a destination in Fort Collins, Colorado. It's based in a 115-year-old National Historic Register grain mill that we renovated And it has in it 2 restaurants, a coffee shop, a teaching kitchen, a wine cellar, a big event space, 3 outdoor patios, and it's a great community gathering hub.
And what's its purpose?
Yes, it's a bit of a dream for me. And of course, not exactly what I dreamed, but maybe better. I've always wanted to open a pie shop. My mom fed the world, took care of people. She taught me how to cook. She had a catering business. I can make wedding cakes and I can bake a mean pie. And I've always considered pie, that's my next TED Talk, why pie? I've always considered pie to be a symbol of things I value. It's handmade, it's shared food, it's usually made from locally sourced and natural ingredients. It takes time and love. It almost always has a story attached to it. Everyone I've ever met has a pie story, an aunt or a great grandmother or a moment or a date. And so pie is about bringing people together and about showing community attachment and familial renaissance. It's a little bit of nostalgia. And I always wanted to open a pie shop. So I found an old building. It ended up being way harder and more expensive. And so then it had to be bigger because I couldn't sell enough pie to pay for the building. And it's a great way to have an anchor in a community and get to know everybody who lives here and everybody who's moving here and be an advocate for Fort Collins, which is a great place to live.
So why was that important to you? It's intriguing, right? You've had an incredibly successful career. Why? Why was this important to you?
Yeah, there's so many things I miss about not running a company. So that teamwork, that working with a group of people repeatedly over time to build something that no one's ever seen before, that sense of spirit and competitiveness and success. I thought it would be fun to be able to build a team and to do something no one's ever seen here before that would be fun. And it's also a way to be part of something. That building belongs to this community. It's seen Fort Collins grow for over 100 years. It's laid testament to agriculture as a staple of life here. Just like when I was a kid, my dad would put us in the truck and go to town to the co-op, and all the farmers would swap stories and talk about the weather and drink coffee, and the kids would play. And it was a community gathering place. And so this old building is like how I grew up, and this community is that friendly, accepting, inclusive, hardworking, normal America. And I thought that building could be a community gathering place for the next 100 years if we do it right, and be something that people are proud of. And they bring their friends and family, and people land in Denver and drive to Fort Collins. It's a national brand, and pretty soon you'll order your pie from Ginger and Baker and we'll ship it to you, or your gift basket, or when you want to send a thinking of you to someone that's homemade, you'll call me, and then it'll be fun.
Okay. You've won me over. I think Thanksgiving you might be getting an email from me.
Okay.
All right. So we're getting closer to the end of the session. So now take a look back over your entire career, entire life. Hopefully we've got a lot of younger folks listening into this discussion today. What would you teach them? What are a couple of gems of wisdom here that you'd like to impart?
Well, there are a few things that I feel like I've learned that I'm confident in. The world changes, but a few things don't. One is, I think my number one advice to young students coming out of college is pick your boss, not your job. When you're young, you're very impressionable and you're not confident yet. You're not certain of your skill set and where you're going. So if you pick the right boss, you'll get coached. They'll tell you the truth. You'll get real feedback. They'll celebrate what you do well, and they'll help you gain your confidence in addition to competencies. And I believe that's important, because if you work for the wrong person out of the gate, then you might fail in someone's eyes, and then you think it's about you instead of the situation. When you're older and things don't go well, you realize, okay, I'm not as good at this, or he's not such a great boss, or she didn't do her part. But when you're young, it's hard. So pick your boss, not your job. And I also try to encourage people to think about how they show up. How do you want to show up? Not what other people think or what was easy or how you felt, when you spilled coffee down your front on the way to work today. When you walk in the door of your home, your marriage, your business, choose how you show up so that you can be the person that you intend to be, and you can have the effect on other people that you want to have, which hopefully is positive, not negative. And I also think that showing up is not enough, which is something that I tell a story. I have a cousin I'm very close to. She's 21 years younger, kind of like a daughter I didn't have. And I went to her high school graduation. And at the same time, I was on my, back before iPads, my phone trying to do a deal in Japan. The entire time she's walking across the stage, I put my phone down, I clap, and then I go back trying to buy a company in Japan. And so for her college graduation, I went, of course, and I asked her beforehand, what would you like for a college gift for graduating? And she said, leave your phone at home. And, the great lesson in that was just because you're there doesn't mean you're really there.
Yeah.
And so, of course, showing up is important and choosing how you show up is important. But in the sense that just showing up is not enough, be there for people. Be there for people. And if you're your authentic self and you're on a learning curve in life and you're willing to take a risk and always be accountable for what you do, then I think you can have an amazing career and amazing life no matter what your choices are, because they're yours. They're not someone else's.
I couldn't think of a better way to end this session than that. You're a remarkable woman. Thank you for everything that you've done. Thank you for joining us today. And I am very much looking forward to a ginger and baker pie.
I hope you will.